Greetings and thank you for joining us at FutureMoneyTrends.com. I'm here with a good friend of the show, certainly a mentor to anybody who's ever researched gold. And if you've been lucky enough to see him speak or meet with him personally, very charming individual as well. Bill Murphy of GATA.org, that's GATA.org, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, a civil rights organization that wants to and has been exposing all the fraud and manipulation coming from, believe it or not, our government and large banks in regards to the gold market. And he also has a paid members area if you'd like to have more in-depth daily commentary about gold and your gold investments at Le Metropole Cafe. I'm not going to spell that one over the air, but I will definitely have a link to both Le Metropole Cafe and GATA.org for those of you interested in a follow-up with Bill. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here with you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Well, Bill, let's start off with the sentiment. We have seen the gold price from rate hike to rate hike move up, and it's at a great spot here at 1286. But man, I talked to investors, especially the mining share investors, and there's still just so much disbelief. I don't know if they're going through post-traumatic stress or if this is just how the beginning of an up move starts in a market. You got to climb the wall of worry, right?
Oh, for sure. And as I mentioned to you earlier, this is the worst gold sentiment in 20 years. And I'm not exaggerating. I know this for some people that sell gold coins and other ways of judging that. And it's because partly what happened after the election when the PPT ramped up the stock market, when none of the mainstream people ahead of time predicted it would occur and thought it would be bullish. They all said before the market it would be very bearish, so they were petrified. So they ramped up our Dow and stock market to incredible heights, and at the same time they buried gold and silver. And the dichotomy after a 5-year bear market just wiped out the sentiment of people that were gold and silver believers. Now that's all beginning to change now, and I think big time, but that's the trough we're coming out of.
On a technical basis, when gold's making 52-week highs, especially in 2016, keeps making 52-week highs, that is, by some accounts, a definition of the birth of a bull market, especially because it was still hated, but it was making 52-week highs. I've also seen a chart from somebody who, kind of is more along the lines of believes in we're going to go through a deflationary period in the economy. And basically, they took a line from the 2011 or 2012 and drew it straight down. And you see that gold keeps topping off on this line, and it's in a downtrend. Do you think it's possible that gold is actually still in a downtrend? That the cartel has kept this managed and controlled, and that perhaps 1287 is the top here? Well,
I think the opposite, and that's a great chart you're pointing out there. And from my standpoint, both gold and silver have reverse head and shoulder formation, bottom formations they've broken out of. Gold's leading the way, silver's still struggling. The JP Morgan forces can't handle silver over 1850. But if I might say, I've never seen anything like this in 45 years to the extent that they're suppressing silver, which is a ridiculously low price. They said below 1850. As of right now, the silver open interest is at all-time highs. And that's with the price going nowhere. They are desperate to try to keep this price under control, because once they lose control of it, and to me that means 21, much less 1850, breakthrough there, I think you're going to see the biggest move in the history of markets on the upside. And I think that's why they're going to such a degree to try to keep the price from, giving encouragement to investors. So it is quite something we're going through here, and I'm very optimistic that in the not-too-distant future, we're going to see some fireworks.
Bill, is there any parties that are major into the gold sector, whether it's major mining companies, central banks, or sovereign funds? Is there anyone on the good guys' side, that's trying to expose this as well?
Well, Keith Neumeier's done a good job in silver, and of course, our good friends Eric Sprott. I'm going to see in a big celebration party for him in May up in Toronto. A great job, and Seabridge Gold and Kirkland Lake have been supporters, and Sage Gold. And there have been some, but there are very, very few people that have supported us over the years, and some other smaller companies. And they just run away from it. I mean, we're taking on the richest, most powerful people in the world. and people just don't want to cross that. Even when it comes to describing the daily activity in the gold market, in silver market, it's so obvious and ludicrous what they're doing, and nobody will mention a thing. I mean, we have a guy who's a tremendous individual, CEO of a lumber company, James McSherl, who talks about how basically you can, every $10 up in gold, you have 10,000 contracts and open interest go up, and now they stop it at exactly 1%. He can circle the tick the day before. Says, here's where it's going to run into resistance. And it's so obvious, but that's the way it is. We've learned that over the 18 years of trying to expose this manipulation, and I don't think it'll ever get anywhere until it blows up, which it is going to do. When it blows up, it'll end up being a scandal like Madoff was, and so on. So it takes the market to fall apart for that to occur.
What is the mainstream, if the media even covers this at all, what is the excuse for, say, $1 billion worth of gold to hit the bid in the matter of a minute? I know what we see, and I know what I read on GATA and places like TF Metals and SGT Report and Zero Hedge. What is the mainstream excuse for this? Who does this? I mean, silver and gold trade like penny stocks sometimes.
Well, that is a very good point, Dan. That's the thing, is they never say a thing. No matter what is brought to their attention, that's the point I'm trying to make. They will not discuss it. They won't explain why a market trades like this, like gold and silver do, like no other markets. It makes no sense unless you understand that there's a gold cartel out there whose primary aim is to keep the gold and silver prices suppressed and so on. And this just goes on and on and on, and they have different maneuvers as you discussed. I mean, we just had two raids in early April and one on March 2nd, which, I mean, for example, silver went down 60, 70 cents in a matter of minutes. And it's just ludicrous. But we're come to the conclusion that, again, until the market blows up, it'll never be discussed by the mainstream because they don't want against the people paying their income.
Now, what is, the past 4 weeks, gold is doing reasonably fine. It's flat or whatever during the day. And then about 2 hours into the market open, gold is up $5, down $5, flat. But then the GDXJ and the mining shares just get smashed to hell, like 10% down in a day. It's unbelievable. I know you've been observing this as well. Is this so subscribers understand and listeners understand? Is this simply another means of the cartel being able to control these tiny little markets? Being able to smash to smithereens the mining shares for no reason.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up because especially in the silver situation, when silver is struggling to get up a penny at a time, but it's been going up and up and up, and until very recently, which it's changed, the silver shares were going down. It was a complete dichotomy, and the answer is it very well could be that that's exactly what the cartel does because they're trying to influence sentiment and do everything they can because they're desperate to keep silver under control. That they were just hitting the shares, trying to influence people to not, get into the silver market itself on the COMEX and so on. So I think, yes, they move into the shares from time to time and try to influence what's going on in the physical markets and futures markets.
Bill, I want to talk to you about the debt, the U.S., and specifically the debt ceiling maxed out on March 15th. Today I'm doing an interview with you. It's April 13th. I haven't even seen CNBC, which is a financial media. No one's covering this at all, and it's completely maxed out. They can't borrow any money. And if you consider that Congress is on vacation until like the end of the month, that means at least for another 2 weeks it's going to be maxed out. And then after seeing what happened with the healthcare bill, do you think that we're moving into perhaps a pretty significant summer here? Because I don't know if Trump has a Republican Party. I think he has an establishment party that he's up against, right?
Yeah, again, it was my opinion, as I mentioned earlier, no one in the mainstream thought Trump would be bullish for the markets, and I think they were so petrified of a Trump administration that they went into overdrive and were to get the stock market going bananas because they were afraid of a financial market meltdown, and that's the reason they took gold off the radar screen at the same time in November. And I think now some of these concerns, and there's nothing against President Trump, but basically the health care thing, as you mentioned, didn't go. The tax thing is now probably going to be put back. The biggest thing to me is the squabbling in his inner circle that's been made public. And I think that these things have got the establishment petrified of what could happen. And in terms of what you mentioned, the debt ceiling, yeah, it's funny you bring that up. So I thought the same thing. Well, it's not even discussed like it in years past. Everything has been silent. And what they're going to do about funding the government in the next few weeks, I don't know. But they're just put everything off the radar screen, trying to keep things going in the right direction.
Well, certainly if there's a war, you can imagine they'll increase the debt ceiling, there'll be emergency spending measures. Bill, you've been watching geopolitics and trading in the commodities market for a long time. Do you think that things are serious this time? I know the North Korea saber rattling has been going on forever, but is this finally coming to a head here?
Well, to be honest, I've never seen a geopolitical event outside of maybe 9/11 ever making one bit of difference, because nothing ever happens. You get saber rattling, you move a ship, you'll get a strike that's an internal thing in Syria, and and even that it took one day to take that move back. If there was something serious that was meaningful, of course, it would be mega for the gold and silver markets. But I put more of my concentration on what you're talking about our fiscal issues and the growing inflation in the United States, and that's I think is much greater than they're reporting, and all kind of things that's building pressure-wise for gold and silver to take off. I mean, they've done pretty well of late, with the stock market really not doing much on the downside. We still haven't had a significant correction, and the dollar is still holding its own. So I think the dollar can get hit, and at some point, as you're talking about, the markets could get rocked because they're trying to keep them up. And I think the pressure is building for the bids to come into the gold and silver markets in a major league way.
All right, Bill, for investors who are either just learning about gold or maybe they're already a gold investor or a mining stock investor, and they go to La Metropole Cafe, they subscribe. If you can, give us a description of, first of all, the cost of it and what users can expect once they become a member.
Yeah, I put out a daily commentary and get into the gold, silver markets and cover some of the financial markets, and it's $299 a year. People can sign up for a 2-week free trial and see if it's of value to them, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And I think where it's going to be important is a lot of people have just, because of what the stock market has done, they've taken gold and silver off the radar screen, and now's the time to be, I think, especially focused. And if I'm correct about silver, we've got the biggest move in history coming once we take out 21, because of what they've done to keep the price down at this level, meaning think of like a Newton's law. In other words, they've gone through all their physical supply, or I think much of it, to keep the price here, and it's reaching a tipping point which they can't do it anymore. So in terms of Newton's law, the equal and opposite reaction will be it's been kept at this ridiculously low price for these past years, and so the reaction on the upside is going to be something rarely seen before, especially with this open interest at all-time highs. If the price keeps going up and they keep selling, at some point they're not going to be able to make deliveries, and you're going to have all kinds of bonkers action on the upside as the shorts are forced to cover.
Bill, I know Eric Sprott has talked about a potential COMEX default, and he's even said, look, it's kind of like a silver bug's dream, right? Fundamentally, can this happen, or do they just settle in cash? But then does that create the crisis that, hey, shit, they just settled in cash? That is a default.
You just answered your own question. Thanks, Dan. Yes, that is a default, and that's exactly what will probably occur. And as I said, I'm a big Eric Sprott fan, and I think Eric's going to be right. And this is what we have coming. Now, whether it's imminent or whether it's is months ahead, I mean, we just don't know. There's no way to predict it. It looked like we could be going in that direction last year, and that was completely aborted. And all the people that, if anybody was taking on the J.P. Morgan crowd, they got buried and quit because the open interest went way down again. But now it's back at all-time highs, and we're not even close to 21. So to me, this reveals the desperation that the bad guys, as I call them, are in right now. And it's going to be, after some years of tedious angst and misery, it's going to be one of the most exciting market events of all time. Yeah,
I mean, they're killing the mining industry with these low prices. All right, Bill Murphy of GATA, that's GATA.org, as well as La Metropole Cafe. Again, I'll have the links in iTunes, as well as our YouTube channel and our website. Bill, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Anytime, Dan. I really enjoy it, and can't wait to see you and your family again soon.
cyclical basis, when gold's making 52-week highs, especially in 2016, keeps making 52-week highs, that is, by some accounts, a definition of the birth of a bull market, especially because it was still hated, but it was making 52-week highs. I've also seen a chart from somebody who, kind of is more along the lines of believes in we're going to have go through a deflationary period in the economy. And basically they took a line from the 2011 or 2012 and drew it straight down. And you see that gold keeps topping off on this price from rate hike to rate hike, move up. And it's at, a great spot here at 1286. But man, I talked to investors, especially the mining share investors, and there's still just so much disbelief. I don't know if they're going through post-traumatic stress or if this is just how the beginning of an up move starts in a market. You got to climb the wall of worry, right?
Oh, for sure. And as I mentioned to you earlier, this is the worst gold sentiment in 20 years. And I'm not exaggerating. I know this for some people that sell gold coins and other ways of judging that. And it's because partly what happened.
Inflation coming from, believe it or not, our government and large banks in regards to the gold market. And he also has a paid members area if you'd like to have more in-depth daily commentary about gold and your gold investments at Le Metropole Cafe. I'm not going to spell that one over the air, but I will definitely have a link to both Le Metropole Cafe and GATA.org for those of you interested in a follow-up with Bill. Bill, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here with you, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Well, Bill, let's start off with the sentiment. We have seen the gold. Greetings and thank you for joining us at FutureMoneyTrends.com. I'm here with a good friend of the show, certainly a mentor to anybody who's ever researched gold. And if you've been lucky enough to see him speak or meet with him personally, very charming individual as well. Bill Murphy of GATA.org, that's GATA.org, the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, a civil rights organization that wants to and has been exposing all the fraud and manipulation.
After the election, when the PPT ramped up the stock market, when none of the mainstream people ahead of time predicted it would occur and thought it would be bullish, they all said before the market it would be very bearish, so they were petrified. So they ramped up our Dow and stock market to incredible heights, and at the same time they buried gold and silver, and the dichotomy after a 5-year bear market just wiped out the sentiment of people that were gold and silver believers. Now, that's all beginning to change now, and I think big time, but that's the trough we're coming out of.
On a